and the objections are overruled. In terms of relevance, the exhibits are relevant for a couple of purposes. The exhibit is relevant, I should say, for a couple of purposes. Some of the pages in this exhibit are relevant because they show purchases of items that were either used in the shooting or found in the defendant's car or found in the defendant's apartment. So they are directly relevant to items of evidence that have been introduced already, and they are relevant to the elements of the crimes charged, which the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm speaking specifically about the commission of the acts that have been charged. So that's one of the reasons why they're relevant. Another reason why these documents are relevant is that to the extent that they do not reflect any purchases of items or any transactions related to items that were recovered at the theater or in the defendant's car or in the defendant's apartment, they are probative of the defendant, of the issues raised by the not guilty by reason of insanity plea, and they are probative of the culpable mental state elements of the crimes charged. So it's similar to the reasons why I admitted the documents yesterday from Point Loma Credit Union. And I incorporate by reference my comments yesterday with respect to those records. And I also incorporate by reference my comments last week with respect to People's Exhibit P-TR-1227 when I ruled on the admissibility of that exhibit. These records reflect, to the extent that they do not relate to an item that was found in one of the crime scenes, in this case, in other words, the theater, the car, the defendant's car, or the defendant's apartment. These records in this particular exhibit relate to or reflect the defendant's cognitive abilities, the defendant's mental capacity. And so it is probative of the defendant's capacity to form the culpable mental states and the defendant's capacity to distinguish right from wrong. They show the defendant's ability to process information, the defendant's ability and capacity to be aware of his surroundings, to function, to purchase things, to make transactions, to communicate as he's making these transactions, because you have to communicate with merchants, and whether you're doing it online and communicating online or whether you're using it in person, there's some level of communication that is required. So it is relevant for all those reasons, and whether you can communicate in a logical, appropriate, coherent fashion, or at least sufficiently logical and appropriate and coherent to be able to complete the transactions, to be able to complete the sales, if you will. Yesterday, during Dr. Fenton's testimony, on cross-examination, Ms. Brady asked multiple questions about things that the defendant said to her that she did not understand and that did not make sense to her, and things that she never came to understand. And frankly, I think that was an entirely appropriate line of questioning. I think that is probative of the issues raised by the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. But conversely, evidence that shows that the defendant is able to or has the capacity to communicate in a logical way or in a coherent fashion, and that he's able to understand his surroundings, that he's able to perceive information and process information, that he's able to function in order to purchase things, whether in person or online, is equally probative of the issues raised by the not guilty by reason of insanity plea. And as I have said before, it is not, it would not be appropriate to limit it to just the period of time in 2012, shortly before the shooting. For one thing, the jury needs a point of reference. They need something to compare that behavior, those behaviors and those interactions and those communications and those transactions and those instances of the defendant's life to something. And sort of having a before and after, I think, is something that is necessary here. So I think it's important for the jury to also have something to compare that information to, and that's where the period of time before March of 2012 comes in. And I think going back to May of 2011 is appropriate for the reasons I stated yesterday. That's when the defendant, in general, was getting ready to move to Colorado, making plans, making arrangements, and in the process of moving to Colorado for school. And that's to a large extent what this case is about. It is about the defendant attending the University of Colorado here in the state of Colorado. That's why he came here. That took most of his time between May of 2011 or June of 2011 and July 20, 2012. That's what took most of his time. That's what he used most of his time for and energy for most of that time period anyway. So I think that the schooling and the time frame of the schooling is the relevant time frame here, and I think it's appropriate to then go back to May of 2011. I have mentioned multiple times before that there is a difference in the way the parties view the case, and one of the parties thinks, I think, that there was really not much of a change in the defendant throughout, and the other side believes that there was a significant change at some point in 2012. And so I think it goes to that disagreement as well. So for all the reasons I have stated before, and for the reasons I've stated just now, the objection to relevance is overruled. Then under 403, the question is whether the probative value of this evidence is substantially outweighed by any of the concerns in Rule 403. And I have not been presented with any reason to lead me to believe that this exhibit is inadmissible under Rule 403. There is some overlap between this exhibit and other exhibits, but that's almost inevitable. Of course there's going to be some overlap between this exhibit and, for example, the Point Loma exhibit, or, for example, some of the testimony. But that's the case in every trial, and that does not mean that it is the unnecessary presentation of cumulative evidence, nor does it mean that even if it is the unnecessary presentation of cumulative evidence, that it should be kept out because it substantially outweighs the probative value of the evidence. In this case, I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any concerns related to the unnecessary presentation of cumulative evidence or any other concerns in Rule 403. So for those reasons, the Rule 403 objection is overruled as well. Having said all that, I will give the redaction instruction that the defense has requested, and I'll give the same one that the defense requested previously. In terms of the request by Ms. Hicks to not release the Point Loma credit union records that were admitted yesterday to the public, the request is granted. I agree that there's some sensitive information in there, and so I'm not going to release those records. Are the parties ready for the jury?
One thing real quick, Judge. The court may have said it was People's Exhibit 7-3. It's actually 793.
I meant to say P-TR-793. If I said something else, I erred, and I appreciate you letting me know. But I thought I said P-TR-793. But that's what I meant in any event. Thank you.
And real quick, Judge, in case I failed to mention it before, the two pages that we redacted were 4602 and 4614. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. Mr. Edson, do you want to retrieve the exhibit, please?
I can also leave it with the court because we're intending to publish this with individual copies to the jurors, and I don't know if the court wanted. That's an extra copy if the court wanted that.
Okay, that's fine. I thought that was the original. Okay, thank you. All right, would Ms. Nelson and Ms. Tish McGuire please approach on something? All right, are the parties ready for the jury, the people? Mr. Edson?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Is the defense ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Mr. Edson, call your next witness, please.
Diane Matys.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first and middle and last names?
Diane Lee Matys, Dianeleematys.
Mr. Edson, you may proceed.
How are you employed?
I work for USAA Federal Savings Bank in San Antonio, Texas.
What is your job title?
Custodian of Record Specialist.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes.
This will be People's Exhibit 793. I've handed you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 793. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
What is that?
This is the credit card application for USAA Federal Savings Bank credit card number 5491-2372-7019-2217, and the applicant is James E. Holmes.
That number you just read, is that the credit card number?
Yes, it is.
What type of credit card is that?
This was a MasterCard.
Beyond just that page, what else is contained within this exhibit?
The monthly credit card statements.
Are these computerized records?
Yes.
Are you familiar with them as a custodian of records for USAA?
Yes.
Are these records computer generated?
Yes.
Are the computer entries made in the regular course of business?
Yes.
Were those participating in making the records acting in the routine course of business for USAA?
Yes.
Are the input procedures for these records accurate?
Yes.
Were the entries made within a reasonable time after the transactions involved?
Yes.
Is the information transmitted by a reliable person, such as yourself, who has knowledge of the contents of these records?
Yes.
Does USAA regularly receive, maintain, and rely upon information transmitted by the various merchants that are reflected in these records?
Yes.
I'm going to draw your attention to the first 4 pages there. I believe you said that's the credit card application.
Yes.
The information that's contained in that credit card application, how do you receive that information?
This is a credit card application, and the information is provided by the applicant.
The information provided by the applicant, is that used by USAA to create a business relationship between the applicant and USAA?
Yes.
Does USAA substantially rely upon the information contained in the records for a business purpose?
Yes.
these records appear to be fair and accurate copies of the original USAA records surrounding this particular account for this particular time period.
Yes.
They appeared to be the same type of copies that you previously certified.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move for admission of People's Exhibit 793.
Is there any additional objection to P-TR-793?
No, Your Honor, there is not.
All right, without any additional objection, and based on my previous ruling, the exhibit is admitted.
Permission to publish to the jury, Your Honor, with individual copies.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, may I approach your clerk?
You may. Members of the jury, we're going to publish this exhibit the way we've done others. We're going to give each of you a copy so that you can have it with you. Mr. Edson, are you intending to ask questions as the jurors are holding an individual copy of this exhibit?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So we'll do it the way we did yesterday, and so you can follow along.
Your Honor, while those are being passed out, is the handheld microphone up near the witness?
Oh, here.
Yes.
Thank you. Set it there. Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach to retrieve some previously admitted evidence?
You may.
Your Honor, permission to ask a couple of questions standing here.
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm handing you what's been previously admitted as People's Exhibit 721. It's the middle item there. Can you take a look at that for me, please?
And while the witness is doing that, folks, I want to give you an instruction with respect to this exhibit. Exhibit P-TR-793 has been admitted with redactions. You are instructed that you are not to draw any inferences from those redactions. Does everybody understand that? Everyone's saying yes and nodding their head yes. All right. Mr. Edson, why don't you ask the question again, please?
Thank you. People's Exhibit 721, you have that before you. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that?
This is the credit card for James E. Holmes, account number 5491-2372-7019-2217.
Does it have James Holmes' name on that particular card?
Yes.
Is there an expiration date?
Yes. 9/14.
Does that credit card account number match the information from People's Exhibit 793?
Yes.
Thank you. If I could draw your attention to the first page of People's Exhibit 793. This was page number at the bottom, 4501. Are you with me on that, Ms. Matys?
Yes.
Tell the jury in general, what is this information?
This is the credit card application for credit card 5491-2372-7019-2217 for James E. Holmes.
I see underneath the card number it says individual. What does that refer to?
This is an individual account.
Down at the fourth box under card features, what card type is this credit card?
It is a MasterCard.
I'm going to have you turn to the second page. That would be page 4502. Under the box, it's the second box that says decision details. Do you see where I'm referring to?
Yes.
Is there an approved date?
Yes.
What is that date?
September 18, 2006.
What does that mean?
That means the credit card application was approved on that date.
Is that approximately the date that the credit card went into effect and was open for use?
Yes.
If I could have you turn to page 4599, please. What in general are we looking at here?
This is the monthly statement for credit card 5491-2372-2701-92217, dated May 8th, 2011, for James E. Holmes.
In your experience, is it common for some retailers to post the last four digits of a credit card number on receipts or other transactions?
Yes.
What was the credit limit for this particular credit card as of May 2011?
The credit limit is $2,500.
Now have you turn to the next page, which would be page 4600, and direct your attention to the second box. It's going to be titled Payments and Credits. Do you see where I'm referring to?
Yes.
Can you just kind of tell us what we're looking at here, reading left to right? What does that refer to? The top one that says USAA.com PMT. Tell us what we're looking at there.
That USAA.com payment, thank you, that is an online payment through USAA on April 18th, 2011 in the amount of $331.15.
What do you mean by online payment?
USAA.com is the internet channel into USAA where you sign on using a user ID and password.
Based on your review of these records, is this any sort of automatic, timely, every month type of payment, or are these individual payments where someone would have to actually go in and physically log in to make these payments?
This payment was made through USAA.com.
Again, with the login password information?
Yes.
If I could have you turn to page 4614, please. On page 4614, first of all, and you can refer back one page to 4613, is this the statement closing of roughly December 2011, or a statement that's at the end of 2011?
Yes, it is the December 8th, 2011 statement.
So on page 4614, my question for you is, that smaller box towards the bottom, it says 2011 totals year to date. Can you explain to the jury what we're looking at there, please?
Oh, during the year 2011, there were no fees charged against the account or no interest charged against the account.
Does that mean that payments were made regularly on time?
Yes,
You've had a chance to look through the various monthly statements in this record, is that correct?
yes,
Was there ever a time where there was a late payment?
no,
Ever a time where there was interest charged?
no,
Were there times when payments were actually made ahead of time,
yes,
ahead of the scheduled amount?
yes,
Was that common?
yes.
I'd like to direct your attention to page 4625, please. What are we looking at here on this particular page?
This is the June 7th, 2012 monthly statement for Mr. Holmes's credit card account.
The same credit card ending in 2217?
Yes,
What was the credit limit at that time?
$2,500.
So from May 2011 through July of 2012, did the credit limit remain the same?
Yes,
If an individual pays off a credit card, or makes a payment is probably a better term, towards the credit limit. Is that something that is accepted by USA in order to keep under a particular credit limit?
Yes.
I'm going to have you turn to the next page, which would be 4626, please. I'm going to direct your attention to transactions, and under that, the payments and credits, and direct your attention to a transaction and post date of May 11th for a USAA.com payment. Can you describe that for us, please?
Yes. It is a May 11th USAA.com payment in the amount of $1,552.28.
Was there another payment on May 30th of 2012?
Yes, there is a May 30th USAA.com payment in the amount of $892.96.
Was there another payment made on June 6th, 2012?
Yes, there is a June 6th USAA.com payment in the amount of $546.52.
Direct your attention to the transactions on this same page, 4626. Specifically, May 9th, the first transaction. What was that for?
That is a transaction dated May 9th to Amazon.com, AMZN.com, Bill WA, in the amount of $30.87.
The third payment there on May 10th, 2012, that begins with 24 hour. Do you see that?
Yes.
What is that a payment for?
That is on May 10th, it is a 24-hour Fitness USA, Inc., in the amount of $24.99.
Have you reviewed the records for other payments for 24-hour fitness as well?
Yes.
Does that appear to be a somewhat, or in fact, a regularly monthly payment to to 24-hour fitness?
Yes.
I'm going to direct your attention, staying on page 4626, the May 10th payment, BTP Arms. How much was that for?
$43.79.
Two additional lines down, approved gas masks. Was there a payment there as well?
Yes.
Actually, I should say that was a transaction, correct?
Yes. There is a May 11th transaction in the amount of $133.74.
Was there a successful transaction for May 22nd to Gander Mountain, Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, there is a transaction for May 22nd in the amount of $647.99.
Was there a successful transaction for Bass Pro Shops on May 28th, 2012?
Yes, there is a May 28th transaction for Bass Pro Shops in the amount of $469.18.
If I could direct your attention to the following page, that would be page 4627. Fair to say this is the statement closing date of July 8th, 2012?
That is correct.
I'm going to direct your attention to page 4628, which is the second page of that July 2012 statement. I'm not going to have you read all of these off, but under the payments and credits section, were there numerous payments to USAA.com through that online process that requires the login with a password that you described earlier?
Yes.
At least three of them over, actually four of them over an amount of $1,000 each?
Yes.
What was the total payments and credits for that particular period of all of those payments to USAA.com?
$6,858.81.
For the transactions themselves, I'm not going to go through all of them, but would you confirm that there was a transaction for Gander Mountain on June 7th with a post date of June 8th, 2012?
Yes.
Schomer Tech?
Yes.
Was there a transaction with Sportsman's Guide, June 13th?
Yes.
Brownells, June 19th?
Yes.
There's also Bullet Block, June 19th?
Yes.
And when they're listed in this transaction section, does that show that it's a successful transaction?
Yes.
In other words, card was rang up, either swiped or online, it was entered by the computerized system and it went through successfully?
Yes, it is posted to the account.
Motorcycle Depot, June 21st, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a transaction for Iron Buffalo Enterprise on June 21st?
Yes.
Law Enforcement Target on June 21st?
Yes.
Online Fireworks, June 28th?
Yes.
As well as Bulk Ammo, June 28th?
Yes.
Cannon Fuse, July 3rd?
Yes.
PayPal, July 4th?
Yes.
Were there transaction for a company or retailer called epoch.com, E-P-O-C-H-C-O-M?
Yes, on July 5th.
Tell the jury about those two transactions, please.
Okay, on July 5th, there is a transaction from epoch.com in the amount of $34.95, and there is another transaction on July 5th to epoch.com in the amount of $1.50.
What was the total transactions for this period, which is roughly the June 7th to about July 6th or 7th, 2012?
$7,692.
Was based upon all the payments and credits that you previously described, was the member, the defendant in this case, able to stay within that $2,500 credit limit for this account?
Yes.
Were there any interest or fees, charges, or any overdrafts or anything like that associated with this?
No.
Have you turn to the next page, 4629. Ma'am, this page looks a little different than some of the other statements. What are we looking at here?
The previous statement was dated July 8th, 2012. What we are looking at now is charges from July 8th through July 24th that occurred prior to the next billing cycle, which would have been the August statement.
So I won't go through all of these. They speak for themselves, but was there a transaction related to Fandango on or around July 8th and 9th?
Yes.
And that's actually a transaction date and a post date, is that correct?
Correct.
Was there another payment made to USAA.com?
Yes.
When an individual makes an online payment with the password and the username as you described, do they do so by linking to any other checking account, for example, to make that payment?
Yes.
How does that work?
You go into the network, you pull up the account, and under options, one option is if you want to make a credit card payment, and you have added to your account a credit card, a bank account, a checking account that can be debited for the payment.
Was there a large transaction to Best Buy over $600 made on July 10th?
Yes.
Below that, is there another monthly reoccurring 24-hour fitness transaction?
Yes.
O'Reilly Auto Parts, July 11th? Is that reflected?
Yes.
Security Pro USA for over $300 on July 11th.
Yes.
July 14th, 2012, another Fandango.com purchase.
Yes.
What was the final transaction, at least on this page, 4629?
A transaction dated July 14th to Colorado Scientific Company in the amount of $175.69.
If we could move to the next page, please. It's 4630. Is this another continuation of transactions?
Yes, it is page 2 of 2.
Is there a Best Buy transaction for July 18th?
Yes.
Some of the 6 final transactions all have a dash or a negative sign next to them. Do you see what I'm referring to?
Yes.
What does that mean?
That is a credit back to the account that is pushed by the merchant.
Does that include the epoch.com account,
Yes.
as well as the 24-hour fitness?
Yes.
And that 24-hour fitness was at July 24th, 2012?
Yes.
In fact, all of those transactions, the return transactions or the credit transactions, were they after July 20th, 2012?
Yes.
Eric, have one moment, please.
Yes.
Your Honor, I have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
All right, is there any cross-examination?
There is, yes, thank you. Good morning, ma'am, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I just have a couple things I want to go over with you. I want to talk just a little bit about making an online payment with your company on a credit card like this, okay?
Yes.
So my understanding is you have a website, right?
Correct.
Person would call up that website either through a bookmark or search or find it, is that right?
Yes.
Put in their name, username, correct?
Correct.
And their password, correct?
Correct.
And that would bring up their account.
Correct.
Now you can set up, sort of like attach your bank account to make regular payments out of your bank account onto your credit card if you want to do that, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so that could be set up and easily accessed every time you go on and want to make that payment from your bank account.
Correct.
Okay. With regard to the automatic payments, I want to, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm going to approach with DTR-64. I've given a copy already to the prosecution.
Okay.
You know, ma'am, can you take a look at that and then let me know if you recognize that document?
Yes. This is a credit card automatic payment authorization dated December 18th, 2008 from James E. Holmes to USAA, providing debit account information for a checking account, routing number 3222.
Ma'am, I don't want you to read it
Okay.
all completely.
Okay.
Now, you recognize that document, and that document is part of the USAA records, is that right?
That is correct.
And that is a record that would be created by your company.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you have a business relationship, as you've already said, with Mr. Holmes, is that right?
Yes.
And the information that he provides to you in a request of that sort is information that you would rely on in your business to actually make automatic payments. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And it's information that you collect in the regular sort of conduct of your business?
Yes,
And it's your regular practice to kind of create a document like that when a request is made, is that right?
yes,
The, sort of the input procedures for your computer system to create that document, are those accurate?
yes,
And that document, that information would be created within a reasonable time period of receipt of that information, is that right?
yes,
And it would be done by reliable people with knowledge of the information?
yes.
Can you, Your Honor, actually, I'm going to move for admission of that document at this time.
Is there any objection to D-TR-64?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, it is admitted.
Thank
And
you.
it may be published.
And Your Honor, if I may approach to show another exhibit to this witness, please?
Yes.
Thank you. For the record, what I've showed you, ma'am, is page 5 of Exhibit 795. And does that appear to be a check,
Yes,
like a check written on a bank account, right?
yes,
Okay. Now, can you originally were sort of reading the routing number and I think also you were going to read the account number on that automatic payment authorization. I don't want you to read those, but can you tell me what those numbers are in general? Like, what is a routing number?
yes. The routing number is the first 9 digits on the bottom left bar of the check, and it is the routing number for Point Loma Credit Union out of San Diego, California.
Okay. So the routing number on the authorization that your company received, is that the same routing number that's on that check?
Yes,
Okay. And the account number that was on the automatic authorization that you received, is that the same account number on that check?
yes,
Okay. So fair to say that Mr. Holmes in 2008 authorized your company to make automatic payments through his checking account at Point Loma Credit Union?
yes,
Okay. When we're talking about automatic payments, what that means is that, for example, if a balance isn't paid in full by an online payment, your company can electronically collect that money out of Mr. Holmes' checking account.
correct,
And there's nothing he has to do further to make that happen. It just automatically occurs.
correct,
But if he makes the online payments in the process we discussed earlier and makes sort of the full monthly payment, then you wouldn't do an automatic payment. Is that right?
correct.
Okay. Ma'am, do you recall exactly what kind of credit card this was that was set up? The application type?
Yes, it was set up as a college start application.
My last area of inquiry for you, ma'am, is it possible for customers with a credit card to set up an automatic charge on their card with, say, other companies?
Yes,
Okay. That's one of, like, the Netflix charges that are reflected here, could be one of those?
an example would be the 20-hour, 4-hour fitness.
Okay. And you could also do something like that, say, with Xcel Energy, with an energy company, is that fair?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I don't have any other questions for you.
thank you.
Mr. Edson, do you have any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor, can I approach to retrieve the defense exhibit?
Yes.
Ma'am, do you still have defense exhibit, it's D64, I believe. Do you still have that in front of you?
Yes.
Now, I want to be clear, this auto pay option, this automatic payment authorization, does that mean that USAA will go in at any particular time and just take any amount of money out of this account that they choose to take out?
No.
Explain.
The automatic payment authorization is when the statement is generated and the balance of the account is noted and payment has not been received, Mr. Holmes has given the bank authorization to debit his checking account for the payment.
Did that occur based on your review of these records during the time period that we have in these records?
There is an automatic payment dated June 2nd in the amount of $805.66.
And can you specify what year that was? I'm sorry.
2011.
Thank you.
There is an automatic payment dated August 2nd, 2011 in the amount of $554.14. There is an automatic payment dated September 2nd in the amount of $663.64. That was September 2nd, 2011.
And all of those are situations where it was not an online initiated type of transaction, but in other words, that was one where USA would come in and automatically take payment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm going to fast forward to page 4626, which is the May 2012 payments and credits. Do you see the 3 USAA.com payments listed in payment of credits there for May, and also there's one for June of 2012?
Yes.
Are those automatic payments?
No.
Are those ones that the individual, such as the defendant, would need to go online with a username and password to actually make that payment?
That is correct.
Draw your attention also to page 4628, which is the July statement of 2012, and this covers payments from June through July 1st of 2012. All of those payments, were any of those automatic payments?
No.
Were all of those payments where an individual would need to go online, put in a username, put in a password to make that payment?
Yes.
The payment on page 4629, the payment made July 9th in the amount of $791.14, is that an automatic payment?
No.
Is that a payment that an individual, such as the defendant, would need to go online with a username and password to make that payment?
Yes.
Judge, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Is there any recross?
Just a couple questions, ma'am. And I know the jury has this document and can look at it, but just so the record is clear, the last online payment, that was July 9th of 2012, is that right?
July 9th, 2012.
Now, there were additional charges after that,
Yes.
some in the hundreds of dollars, is that right?
Correct.
But no additional payments were made after that online, and there's not even noted an automatic payment, is that right?
Correct.
That only goes up to just the very end of July.
Through July 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The jury does not appear to have any questions for Ms. Matys. May she be released from her subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, any objection?
Your Honor, we anticipate possibly calling her back, so we'd like to hold her under subpoena, and I have talked to her about that.
All right, so you're done for now, but you may be called again later, okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll retrieve Exhibit P-TR-793 from the jurors at this time, at least there are copies of it. Call your next witness, please.
Judge, while that witness is coming up, can I retrieve those
Yes.
exhibits?
If you would come around this way, please. I could have you raise your right hand for me so that I can then release my own. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
All right, please be seated. Could you please tell us your name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
My name is Carrie Dawn Ime. First name is C-A-R-Y. Middle is D-A-W-N. Last is I-H-M-E.
Thank you. Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Who do you work for, ma'am?
I work for the University of Colorado.
What is your job with the University of Colorado?
I am the litigation support manager.
Do you act as a records custodian for the University of Colorado system when there are requests for documents pursuant to a court order, a legal process, and similar types of requests?
Yes.
When you do that, do you have access to all the documents in the University of Colorado system?
Yes.
And do you process that request, review the documents, and then certify whether or not the documents, records, or electronic records are in fact the records of the University of Colorado?
Yes.
Is the University of Colorado a public agency?
Yes.
And does the University of Colorado regularly conduct business in the state of Colorado?
Yes.
And when I say the University of Colorado, do you work for CU Denver or do you work for the global University of Colorado, which would include CU Boulder, CU Colorado Springs, and so forth?
Yes, I work for the CU system.
Did you receive a request to retrieve emails associated with a former student at the University of Colorado named James Egan Holmes?
Yes.
And did you determine whether or not James Egan Holmes had an email account with the University of Colorado?
Yes.
Now, does the University of Colorado maintain its own email system?
Yes.
And do students have assigned email accounts?
Yes.
And how about faculty?
Yes.
How about employees such as yourself?
Yes.
Does the University of Colorado save the emails sent and received from CU accounts in an electronic format?
Yes.
And are you able to retrieve those emails and determine whether or not an email account from the University of Colorado, whether a particular email is from that account?
Yes.
And then provide them in response to requests?
Yes.
And did you do so in this case?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibit 1227.
And while he's doing that, could you pull the microphone closer to your mouth, please, so that we can all hear you? Thank you.
Have you seen that before?
Yes, I have.
What is 1227?
These are emails from James Holmes' account.
And have you reviewed those to make sure those, in fact, are emails from the CU server for the defendant's account?
Yes, I have.
And are they accurate?
Yes.
Move to admit 1227, Your Honor.
Any additional objection?
Yes, Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. All right, thank you for your patience, folks. The objection is overruled. The exhibit is admitted. That's People's Exhibit P-TR-1227. Members of the jury, I need to give you an instruction with respect to this exhibit, and that is that it's been admitted with redactions. And you're instructed that you're not to draw any inferences from those redactions. Does everybody understand that? Give me just 1 second. I also need to give you an instruction with respect to this exhibit P-TR-1227, and that is that any statements in these emails, in the emails that are part of this exhibit, that were made by someone other than the defendant are not being admitted for the truth of the content of those statements. Rather, they're being admitted for the limited purpose of placing the defendant's statements in context and to make the defendant's statements intelligible. You should not consider those statements for any other purpose. Does everybody understand that? And everyone's saying yes and nodding their head yes. It's my understanding that the prosecution has requested to publish this exhibit tomorrow, so we're going to hold off until tomorrow for that, but I wanted to give you those two instructions with respect to the exhibit. Mr. Orman, do you have any more questions for this witness?
I do not. That concludes my direct examination.
All right. Do you have cross-examination?
Yes, briefly,
You
Your
may
Honor.
proceed.
Thank you.
Here you go, ma'am.
Do you have People's 1227 in front of you?
I do.
Okay, great. I just have a clarification question about one of the emails that's contained in that exhibit. If you can turn to page, just so we're all on the same page, 1913 of that exhibit.
Okay.
Okay. And that's an email between a Jimmy, Mr. Holmes, and his mother, Goober. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's
Assuming
and
Goober
that's
is his mother.
okay.
I'm assuming Goober is his mother from the other emails.
And that's dated in October of 2011.
Correct.
And there are a number of attachments or several files attached to that email. Is that right?
That's correct.
And in People's 1227, those photographs are hard to see.
Correct.
If I may approach, Your Honor, with what's been marked as TR Defense 65,
Yes.
and I've handed a copy to the district attorney.
Stipulate to admission, Your Honor.
Okay, by stipulation, D-TR-65 is admitted.
And just so we're clear about D-TR-65, that contains a copy of the email that I just referred to.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And it also contains a copy of those photographs that are difficult to read.
Yes.
And then behind those photographs that are difficult to read, we see the legible color copies of those photos.
Yes, we do.
And it appears that those photos are of Mr. Holmes in the mountains. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, I have no further questions.
Is there any redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, and the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from her subpoena, Mr. Orman?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler?
Your Honor, we would ask that she remain under subpoena.
Okay, so you're done for now, but you may be called again, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I leave these here?
You should leave those there, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Teach McGuire, you want to call one more witness before we take our lunch break, is that right?
Sure, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Michaela Hicks.
Good afternoon. Could I have you for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, please be seated. You can hand me those exhibits there. Thank you. All right, could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Michaela Hicks, M-C-K-A-Y-L-A, M-E-G-A-N-H-I-C-K-S.
Ms. Teach McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you. Were you in Theater 8 at the Century 16 Movie Theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes.
Please tell the jury about who you went to the movies with that night.
I attended the movie theater with two of my friends. Their names are Lori Schaefer and Lisa Schaefer.
What time did you arrive at the movie theater that night?
About 11:15 p.m.
What did you do while you were waiting for the movie to begin?
We ate some of the snacks we had bought for the movie, drank some of the drinks we purchased, just talked to each other about our days and our excitement about the new release of the new film.
Please tell the jury about what happened in Theater 8 the night of July 20th of 2012.
As the movie began, the lights were dimmed and the movie appeared on our screen. And approximately 20 or so minutes into it, there was a scene that included some gunfire and some shooting. And we heard some extra noise, so some louder noises in the theater, which we recognized were not part of the movie. At first we thought they were firecrackers or fireworks, and at that point we realized something was not right in the movie theater.
What do you remember happening after that?
Shortly after we heard the fireworks, or what we later learned were gunshots, I felt my face get hit on the right side, and immediately my hands cupped under my face like this, and one of my bottom teeth was in my hands, as well as a great amount of blood.
What do you recall happening after that?
I informed Lori and Lisa that were sitting next to me that I had been injured some way, and we needed to get help or get my face cleaned up and try to figure out what happened. And we started to walk down the stairs of our movie theater, and as we approached the two double doors to Theater 8, a young man said, "Stay inside the theater because we do not know where the shooter is." And so at that point we did not exit the double doors, and so we tried to exit out the back emergency exit.
What happened when you went out the back emergency exit?
I'm going to object at this point to relevance in 403.
Why don't you ask a more specific question?
Sure, what did you observe when you exited out of the back emergency exit of Theater 8?
Same objection.
Sustained.
All right, what did you do in order to try to exit the theater?
We walked to the back exit in order to get somewhere safe, because the movie theater we were in obviously was not. So we walked out of that emergency exit door of Theater 8, and as we walked out of the theater complex, I saw...
I'm going to interject an objection at this point.
Sustained.
Did you, based on what you saw outside, did you stay outside?
No, we did not, because we saw many victims who were bloody.
Sustained.
So what did you do in response to what you saw outside of Theater 8?
We realized it was not a safe environment outside because there were people running.
Your Honor.
And if you could just say what you did and not what you saw outside.
Okay.
So what'd you do in response?
So the objection is sustained. Go ahead.
We tried to enter Theater 8 again through that emergency exit door, but there's no handle on the back, and so we began knocking on the door to get let back in, and someone opened that for us, and we waited in the front of Theater 8 to get hold of someone for help.
What happened when you got back inside Theater 8?
I remember my friend Lori pulling the fire alarm. A young man handed me his jacket in order to wipe up some of the blood on my hands and face, and we were trying to get a hold of 911 operators and trying to figure out the best way to leave the building.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1134.
Yes.
Ms. Hicks, does this diagram of Theater 8 fairly and accurately represent where you were seated in Theater 8 on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1134.
Is there any objection?
No.
Without objection, it is admitted.
If I could please publish, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
1134. right, and Ms. Hicks, there's a little mouse there. It's difficult to use, but if you could point out to the jury where you believe you were seated on July 20th of 2012.
I was sitting in the second seat to the aisle, and there's 2 rows circled because I do not recall which row exactly, but I know I was on the left side of Theater 8, very close to the top of the theater.
Now, if you could move the arrow over towards the right side, do you know that that is the wall between Theater 8 and Theater 9 on the right?
Yes, I do.
So you're actually seated all the way on the other side of Theater 8 when you were shot.
Objection as to
Yes.
answer.
Overruled.
And sorry, you could say that answer again.
Yes, I was.
All right. And did you notice anything in the theater at all when you were in Theater 8 that you observed? Did you notice any smoke? Did you notice any gunshots?
Yes, before I had been injured, before I felt my face get hit, we did see smoke in the bottom right corner of our movie theater.
And could you use that arrow to show the jury where it was that you saw the smoke?
About that area.
Did you observe anything else at all?
No, since we saw the smoke, that helped us, I guess, understand that it could be fireworks because it was smoking, and so that was our reason for thinking that this was fireworks rather than gunshots.
Your Honor, if I could now have what's been previously admitted as People's Exhibit 4744.
Okay.
May I publish? All right, Ms. Hicks, this is also a diagram of Theater 8. If you can see, there's a red line that goes across the theater. And now if you could take your mouse and show the jury, follow that long red line that goes across the theater. Was that in fact the side of the theater that you were seated in when you were shot?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Put that down, thanks. Were you eventually transported for medical treatment after the shooting?
Yes, I was.
Where were you taken?
I was taken to the University of Colorado Hospital off of Colfax in Aurora.
How were you transported?
I was put into the back of a police car by Officer Hawkins, as well as with one other victim in the front seat of that car.
Do you know who that victim was?
Yes, his name
Objection
is
to
Michael
relevance.
White.
Sustained.
To strike.
Please tell the jury.
Hold on. The objection is sustained, so the jury knows that when I sustain an objection, you're to disregard any partial answer or any full answer that may have been given in response to the question that I have sustained. All right.
Please tell the jury about the injuries you sustained.
As a result of my injury, I received stitches that night at the hospital to sew up the gums that were opened severely, and they told me that the bullet fragment that was lodged.
Without telling us what you heard, just answer the question in terms of what injuries you sustained.
Okay.
Tell the jury where your bullet was lodged.
Okay. I received, the bullet was lodged in the left side of my face, and later it was removed with one of the bottom teeth that had been damaged. And after that, I had a bone graft put in to replace some of the missing bone. After that healed for about 3 months, I had braces on my bottom teeth to straighten out the teeth in order to later receive implants. After the braces were taken off,
Going to object.
The objection is overruled. It goes to the extent and the nature and extent of the injury, so overruled. Go ahead.
after the braces were taken off, I received another bone graft as well as a gum graft to replace missing gum on my bottom teeth. And I also received a dental implant and later received 2 crowns put on that dental implant to replace my missing teeth.
Ms. Hicks, how old were you on July 20th of 2012?
I was 17 years old.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 2591, 2545, and 2546?
Yes.
Ms. Hicks, do these photographs fairly and accurately represent the injuries you sustained on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibits 2591, 2545, and 2546.
Is there any objection?
Your Honor, no objection to the first two, an objection to 2546 under 401, 402, and 403.
Can I see those, please? All right, none of these was subject to amended order D98B. The People's Exhibits P-TR-2545 and 2591 are admitted without objection. People's Exhibit P-TR-2546 is not admitted because I sustained the objection under Rules 401, 402, and 403. Here you go. Oops, sorry. You can publish the two that I admitted if you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. 2591, please. All right, please tell the jury what they're seeing here.
This is a picture of me in the university hospital shortly after I arrived of my injury.
And was 2545 the other one the court admitted, Your Honor? Sorry.
The other one that I admitted is 2545.
Okay, great. If I could please have 2545. All right. Tell the jury what they're seeing in this photograph.
This is my injury after I had washed off some of the dried blood.
And to be clear, where actually did the bullet lodge? Was it lodged in your cheek or was it lodged in your jaw?
In my jaw, approximately in this area.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Do you have any cross-examination?
No.
All right, and the jury does not appear to have any questions. May this witness be released from her subpoena?
Please, Your Honor.
Objection?
No objection.
All right, is it Amy?
Hicks.
Hicks, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong person. All right, Ms. Hicks, thank you. You're free to go. Ms. Titch-McGuire, do you want to approach to retrieve this picture? Thank you. And Ms. Titch-McGuire, you may want to give those other pictures to Ms. Martin. Thank you. All right, members of the jury, it's 12:30. Let me talk to counsel briefly of scheduling. Could I see somebody from the... All right, members of the jury, is it okay with everyone if we take an hour and 15 minutes instead of an hour and a half? And everyone's saying yes. Okay. All right, I appreciate your willingness to do that. Let's go ahead and take our lunch break now, please. Make sure that you abide by all my advisements during the break. Enjoy your lunch. I'll see you back here in an hour and 15 minutes, which would be 1:45. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom now. Is there anything we need to talk about before we go on break?
Your Honor, I'd ask to also preclude submission to the public of Prosecution Exhibit 793 and Defense Exhibit DTR 64, also bank records for the same reason.
All right, I'll grant the request for the same reason as well. Ms. Titch-McGuire?
Your Honor, I would ask the court to be able to make a brief record about the Victims' Rights Act. It doesn't have to be right now, but at some point today, whatever the court prefers.
You can make it right now.
Okay, thanks, Your Honor. Your Honor, as the court knows, scheduling this trial has been extraordinarily difficult for all parties, and the people really appreciate the efforts the court made to have the people try to give you the best estimate of when we thought we would finish this case. And we specifically appreciate the fact that the court asked the defense if there was any way we could not have a whole 3-day delay. The people don't object to the delay that the court has suggested because we think it's the people's fault. We weren't able to give you an exact time of when we thought we'd be able to finish our testimony in this case, but nonetheless, under the Victims' Rights Act 24-4.1, 302.51, subsection O, victims have a right to be assured that in any criminal proceeding, the prosecutor will take appropriate action to achieve a swift and fair resolution of the proceedings. In addition, under 24-4.1, 303, the district attorney should inform the court if any victims object to a delay of the proceedings. Several of the homicide family members of this case, Your Honor, have moved to Colorado at great hardship to themselves, financially, leaving their families, leaving their homes, and they're very upset by the fact that there's going to be a 3-day delay of the trial, and so I promised them that I would make that record under the Victims' Rights Act.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I appreciate that they are upset. I can understand that they don't like the delay. I don't like the delay either, but it's not anyone's fault. This is not an exact science in terms of calculating or estimating when things are going to be completed or how long things are going to take. We did the best we could. I asked the prosecution a couple of weeks ago for their best estimate, and the best they could do is tell me that they would finish either on the 9th, sometime between the 19th and the 23rd. And the defense was asking that because they needed to know when they should have witnesses here. They have witnesses from coming from out of town, and it would be unfair for me to say now, well, it's too bad that you relied on the estimate that was provided 2 weeks ago and that you have witnesses flying into town and coming to court starting on the 25th based on that estimate. Now I'm going to have you move all those arrangements and change all those plans. That would be unfair and that would be improper. And it would be improper for me to also say to the extent that any witnesses cannot accommodate the change of plans, then they just don't get to testify. That would violate the defendant's right to a fair trial, and both parties are entitled to a fair trial. The people are entitled to a fair trial. That includes the listed victims in this case, but also the defendant is entitled to a fair trial. And frankly, if the defendant does not receive a fair trial and there happens to be a conviction, it would be for naught because we would be doing this all over again at some point in the future. And I'm sure nobody wants to do that. So there's nothing I can do, and it is what it is. It is unfortunate, but it is unavoidable. There are delays in a trial, but especially when you have a trial that goes on for as long as this one. You know, we started in January, and we've been at it since January 20. It is impossible that you're not going to have some delays along the way in terms of a couple of days or a few days. And finally, I should note that the reality is that we're ahead of schedule, even with the 3-day delay. So I'm not sure that anyone has any grounds to complain. I understand how they feel, but it is not a fair complaint. We're ahead of schedule. We were scheduled to be in trial through September or October. At this point, we're on pace to finish hopefully in August, and that's my goal. At the latest to finish in August, but we're scheduled to go through September or October, so we're ahead of schedule. And to the extent that anyone has any concerns about any delays, the bottom line is that the big picture hasn't changed for the worse in terms of the schedule, and in fact has improved in terms of the duration of the trial. So finally, I wanted to supplement the record in terms of P-TR-793 because as Ms. Matys testified about that exhibit, it occurred to me that the credit card records are also probative for one additional purpose, and that is to show the defendant's management of his finances. And this goes to the same issue that I mentioned yesterday in terms of the Point Loma bank records and any other bank records. So to the extent that he was making payments by having to log on, by having to put in a password, and to the extent that he was keeping up with the payments that are due in a timely fashion, and to the extent that he was also able to avoid exceeding the limit on his credit card, all those things go to the issues raised by the not guilty by reason of insanity plea, as well as the culpable mental state elements by the charges in this case. And then finally, I had mentioned that the credit card records show the acquisition of some of the items that were found at the shooting, or in the car, or in the defendant's apartment. And when I say in the car, I mean the defendant's car. But there was also mention of the records reflecting the Fandango purchases. And so I'm not sure that those were items found in one of those three locations, but it is probative for obvious reasons. The purchase, any purchases of Fandango or movie theater tickets through Fandango are probative in this case. So, all right, that's all I have. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we take a lunch break from the people?
No, thank you.
From the defense? All right, I'll see you after lunch. Thank you.